The more researchers look at the behavior of living things, the more evidence they find that reproduction has choreographed the dance of life.
The goal of both sexes is to have their genes represented in subsequent generations. The way in which males can most effectively do that is to inseminate a number of females. Now, from a female standpoint, one male is really enough, so long as he's a good male. Her major goal is to produce young that will live long enough to reproduce themselves.
Nature's way of doing this is to hormonally activate certain behaviors in its creatures. An example. Some creatures have babies that are born pretty helpless. In the wild, a single parent can't provide both food and constant care for its young, so nature invented pair bonding. Couples.
He likes to keep his hands in front of his face. He was even doing that.
Infant dependency in humans may have led to the common pattern that we see in humans of pair bonding. It may be that this put a very strong selective pressure on male parental involvement, which led to the formation of pair bonds in humans.
To study how pair bonding happens, researchers have turned to a small brown rodent called the prairie vole.
Early in our studies of the prairie vole, we realized that when animals mated, their behavior changed very dramatically. If a female had mated with a male, she began to prefer him. She seemed to become attached to him.
Professor Sue Carter and her team at the University of Maryland looked at the hormone called oxytocin, which is produced during pregnancy and known to promote mothering, as well as other behaviors.
And very simply, when you give oxytocin to a female, it speeds up the rate at which she forms a social attachment for her partner. In male prairie voles, the changes after mating are also quite interesting. Before male prairie vole mates, the males are very friendly. They're very non-aggressive, very good to each other. As soon as the male has mated, he becomes intensely aggressive, so aggressive that if he has to, he will kill a stranger in order to keep him out of his territory.
Hormones again. Vasopressin was also found to be released in males during mating. This hormone has been shown to influence territorial behavior.
So our evidence suggests that vasopressin plays a very important role in the onset of the aggressiveness or the mate defensive component of monogamy.
If some of the chemically controlled behavior of the prairie vole seems familiar, perhaps it's because human beings also produce oxytocin and vasopressin.
The important question that many people would like to know the answer to is whether or not these hormones have the same behavioral effects in humans as they do in animals, and the answer, unfortunately, right now is we don't know. Nature is conservative. It's a good guess if it has an effect on behavior in one species. It may have an effect in humans.
In species like birds, where infants need a lot of care, pair bonding is common. 45% of bird species mate for life, and another 45% stay faithful through the breeding season. Monogamy is rarer among mammals. Only 3% take a single spouse for a lifetime. Human beings are an exception, more or less. Studies show a quarter of American married men and a fifth of American married women admit to having had adulterous affairs. And half the marriages in the U.S. fail, by the fourth year on average. Perhaps we aren't all programmed for lifetime bonding.
In humans, it's popular to talk about the 7-year itch, or now it's the 4-year itch, suggesting that male interest in the pair bond wavers after some period of time. I don't know what the period of this is, but I think this really reflects probably a fundamental difference between males and females in the way they approach sexual behavior. I think it's the characteristic of males that they have been selected to be interested in sex on a relatively continuous basis. Females, on the other hand, have been selected to be interested in sex on an intermittent basis. When females are interested in sex, they're as intensely interested in sex as males are. It's just that it's not as frequent as the case for males. So I think this tendency for pair bonds to split up after some period of time really reflect this tension between the male approach to sex and the female approach to sex.
Gender differences in sexual desire have been stereotyped and perpetuated for millennia. But with even our gametes having different goals, perhaps there is more to this than meets the eye. Sexual behavior has been a focus of Professor Kim Wallen's work for over 15 years. He studies rhesus monkeys.
One of the striking characteristics of non-human primates is that although they are capable of mating, most primate species are capable of mating at any time, actually hormones are very important to when they do actually mate. So for a female rhesus, although she could mate at any time in her cycle, she actually only mates when she's fertile. This suggests to us that the hormones that the female's ovary produces actually influence her motivation to mate.
In the 28-day cycle of rhesus monkeys, Wallen has found that their sexual desire is greatest during their 3-day period of fertility. During the days furthest from ovulation, no sexual interest or activity occurs.
We find in humans, like we find in other non-human primate species, that the female's interest in sex and her behavior varies across her cycle, and her interest in sex peaks at mid-cycle at the time she would be ovulating.
And hormones affect individuals, who then shape society.
For example, work in our lab has recently found that for a male to be integrated into a rhesus group probably requires mating with one of the females in the group, and that this mating in public with one of the females is crucial for that male being accepted by the other females in the group. So sex serves not only a reproductive function, but it also serves the function of social cohesiveness and social integration.
Once in a group, males may assume dominance by displacing others, especially around feeding sites. But the real social power is elsewhere.
Males spend their life living in essentially a female-dominated social structure, and the females indicate when they want to engage in sex and who they want to engage with in sex, and are very persistent about that.
The pattern is common among other primate species like these pig-tailed monkeys and may have some analogs in human courting behavior.
It's clear in monkey groups that the female regulates the sexual interaction and the female chooses which male she's going to mate with and when she's going to mate. What's not clear is that she's selecting between individual males on special characteristics that the males have.
Maybe the only way to find out why one animal picks another is to ask.
That's a boy gorilla. Trouble.
Coco was raised in captivity and taught to talk with sign language. When she reached sexual maturity, they created a video dating service for her.
He lives alone, and he needs a girl.
She knew what she didn't like. She called one of her prospective suitors a toilet. She had her favorites, though didn't explain what her criteria were.
Do you like him? Good.
But after 2 years of being with a male of her choice, Coco and Ndume still haven't consummated their relationship, and female choice remains as mysterious to scientists as it does to primate males. Nature is a sexy place. The living world is